Welcome on in to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Aggies Salveson filling in for Eric Frandsen on the Full Court Press. 106.9 FM, 1390 AM The Fan, streaming online at 1069thefan.com and on the 1069 The Fan mobile app, and streaming live on YouTube. And of course, right as I hit the mics turned on, I had to clear my throat. So that's always
I've done that too. I've done that plenty of times.
Got to clear my throat and then get this show going. Glad to have everyone joining us, however you're doing so, whether it's live as we're on air or on YouTube, whether you're listening afterward or watching afterward on our podcast feed. You can find that on 1069thefan.com and on the mobile app, and as well as our video, essentially video podcasts, I guess, on YouTube, however you're supposed to word that. But yeah. Good to have Ajay on as well.
Hey, thanks for the invite, man. This is awesome.
Yeah, good to have you on. We're going to talk some Aggie hoops today, especially in relation to the Pac-12. We've talked a little bit about like Utah State's roster, like how much hype is there behind the roster. We've also talked about the Pac-12, and we've done some lining up of Utah State compared to the rest of the Pac-12, but wanted to dive a little bit more into that conversation today, just especially where Gonzaga just recently signed yet another, only their second transfer signing, but is a really big one, figuratively and literally, I guess. So where does Utah State stack up not only against Gonzaga, who's obviously the class of the conference, they are the most prestigious team in the conference, but where do the Aggies line up as far as some of these other schools? Where would we put them now that teams are starting to build their rosters? Most teams have at least 6 or 7 players on their roster. Some of them are getting into the double digits. Utah State's up there as far as having double-digit players signed for next year's roster. So we'll get into that. 93015 texting in on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line, saying another amazing day with the deflator on there. It's going to be an amazing show. Hilltop Eric for sure, wishing he could have Ajay on.
Yeah, our main guy, Fancy Pants, is out again.
Yeah, he's
going to be out like next week too. Is that what you said?
Yeah, he'll be out early next week as well.
Sheesh. Jason, you have earned a month's worth of vacation. You take a month off, just any month you want. Just take September off. Nothing's going on in September.
Yeah, I'm sure there's nothing going on in September that would be worried.
Nothing at all.
I do have a vacation planned. I should probably plan another. Just
yes.
Take advantage of the summer when things get a little bit quieter, and I can just be like, I can just unplug from sports for a little bit.
No one cares about like when it's quiet or not. You just take. I mean, Eric's left you out to dry several times. It's time for you to go get yours.
Yeah, it's
like R&R.
It's not like I've ever left town in the middle of the season or anything like that.
Have you?
Well, like March, like the entire month of March.
Doesn't really count though.
I was still working.
I mean, what do we do?
Of course, Eric's usually a lot of these are work trips as well. Like he went to a radio convention.
Work trips.
He's going down to another convention that they're actually hosting down in St. George. So
nerd.
Yeah. A lot of fun stuff.
Hey, so this Utah State men's basketball team, they're building their roster. And it's been really interesting. I had someone call me the other day, and they said, are we going to get a true big? Like, are we going to get one, like an actual true big?
What are we defining as a true big?
See, that's what I wanted to ask you, because you are the stat guru. You are the analytic knower. And so I want to ask you, like, in men's basketball, what is a true big?
I mean, the closest I can get is just a 7-footer, because there are archetypes within, a true center. Like Rudy Gobert is a true center. Nikola Jokic is he might not be the greatest because some people call him a point center, but
he's
he's a center. Like that's his position. But like, consider how radically different those two players are. What do you want out of a center? Do you want, again, these are two complete different archetypes, two players who are the class of their archetype, but vastly different players. So I don't know what a true big is supposed to be. The Aggies have 3 players that are 6'11" or taller. What more do you want?
So it was Gary Clark a center?
Essentially, because Utah still, like last year, Carson Templin, Gary Clark, and Zach Keller were your 3 centers. Gary and Carson did play power forward, or like they would be on the court at the same time, and one of them would be power forward technically, or sometimes one of them would be on there with Zach Keller, and so one of them would be power forward. But essentially, those were your centers, Carson, Gary, and Zach.
So with that, I feel like last year, and to say that we were exposed by Arizona would be completely, just absolutely inarbitrational to say just because it was Arizona. But I felt like there were at times we were outsized and out-physicaled in the post, right? Do these guys that we have signed, the three tall men, the big men, I should say, do they solve that issue in regards of being out-rebounded or out-physicaled underneath the boards?
I think it helps. You bring in a guy like Will Hornseth. He's a solid interior presence. I know he's not tall. I've heard rumblings that he's maybe a little bit taller than the 6'8" he's listed at.
He looked tall when I stood next to him, that's for sure. Holy cow.
They're all tall no matter who
I
they
thought
stand
you were all
next
going to
to.
say they're all tall. You are, Jay.
Well, I've stood next to Walker Kessler, and he makes me look puny.
Really, Walker
Yeah.
does? Or sorry,
Walker Kessler.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, he's all 7'2". It's like, or 7'1",
I know he's
whatever he's officially listed at. Had a chance to meet him, but yeah. And then you bring in Colin Mulholland, Sean Feltz, Braun Roberts not likely to play this year just because of the injury in February. But you're going to have 4 players 6'8" or taller in your front court rotation, and I imagine they'll be sharing the court a lot. And that's one thing that's really interesting about this front court is that it was tricky or could get sketchy having Carson and Gary share the court together. Like, could Zach and Carson share the court together under Jared Calhoun's scheme? Part of that was just because it required so much switching and the ability of basically everyone to be able to guard 1 through 5 all the time. Ben Jacobson's defense isn't going to require that. There's also the fact that basically everyone, and we'll maybe get to this a little bit later, basically everyone can shoot threes. Like, you're not really going to be worried about spacing if you have Carson and Colin Mulholland or Will Hornseth and Carson Templin together or Sean Feltz out there as well. So they'll be able to play these guys on the court at the same time, be able to mix and match all these different lineups. And I think with the length that Mulholland and Feltz add, with the physicality that Hornseth and Carson Templin both definitely have, I don't think the Aggies are going to be out physical in the post. Also because that is something that Ben Jacobson will be drilling into these guys. His teams are defensive rebounding machines. You know, it will be drilled into them from day 1 to day 365 of the season. They will rebound. They will be physical inside, offense, defense, especially on defense, especially on the defensive glass, which was where Utah State could sometimes get in trouble, was at the rim and on the defensive glass. But this system, this roster they're bringing in is going to address that issue. Now, that may end up opening the door to other issues because every system, every scheme, every roster has its weaknesses. But if you're looking at that particular area, I think the Aggies will be able to stand up physically. Mulholland and Feltz need to add a little bit of weight, more so Feltz because he's listed at 220, and I almost believe that he weighs 220 pounds.
How tall is he?
6'11".
Okay.
So he probably needs to add 15, 20 pounds, which if you really put the work in, you can kind of do that in an off season. I mean, Tucker Anderson did.
Yeah, he did.
Adlan Elamine.
I think even Drake did too.
Yeah, Drake put on some weight as well. David Weezy put on a similar amount of weight. So I think that's something that Sean Feltz can do. Mulholland's already 235, which add 10 pounds and he's perfectly fine. He'll be plenty bulky enough to handle the best of the Pac-12.
So let me ask you this. Pac-12 basketball is a lot different than the Mountain West. The San Jose States, the Wyomings, they're all gone, right? Now you got Colorado State, you got Oregon State, Washington State, obviously, as you mentioned, Gonzaga. The Aztecs, the Broncos are still in there. When you look at this roster the way it is right now, and I know you, Jason, you do your homework, how does it compare to the elite teams, the upper echelon teams of this conference? Do we match up size-wise?
Yeah, I think the Aggies match up size-wise. They got guys that they can play 6'8", 6'7" at power forward. They're not going to have to play 4-guard lineups. They can play big with space and play well on defense with that size. You know, you've got your odd 6-foot point guard. You might have a 6'3", 6'4" wing out there. So there are going to be positions where maybe they're technically undersized, and I would like them to maybe add a little bit more length. You always want to add length and versatility, But I think that they're going to match up size-wise with pretty much anybody. They're not going to face a team where it's just like, holy cow, these guys are tall, and they got long arms, and how are we going to deal with that? They will face teams that are taller and longer, but it's not going to be this massive gap between them and other teams.
And then numbers-wise, I mean, even from a shooting perspective, guards. I mean, give me what you see from the guard play, both from in comparison from Utah State upper echelon teams.
I mean, when you got Mason Falslev,
you're in good shape, aren't you?
Utah State has the best guard in the conference right now,
hands down, bar none. I would agree.
So that starting point is amazing. Now, when you go beyond that, there are things that I like, but there are question marks as to, well, how is this ultimately going to work?
Give me your biggest like and your biggest question mark right now where you see it.
I love Solomon Callahan's shooting.
Really?
I know he's streaky, and that's something that came out from Wright State fans. They're like, yeah, when he's on, but when he's not, he's not. But it's like, okay, so was Taylor Funk, so was MJ Collins, so was Ian Martinez. I think sometimes we exaggerate the streakiness of players because that's literally every player. Steph Curry goes 9 of 15 one night.
Yeah.
And only because he's Steph Curry, an off night for him is like 4 of 15. But like it's still hitting 4 or 5 3-pointers. But like players are going to do that. College shooters are going to do that. They're going to go 0 of 8 one night. The kid who shoots 48% from the field is going to go 1 of 6 on a particular night. So it's going to happen. So Solomon Callahan, I love his shooting. I love, the off-ball aspect, or even sometimes a little bit of on-ball. Like just watching the kind of shots he took and then watching Northern Iowa film, it's like you can just pull him from one video clip and drop him in the other, and it's basically the exact same stuff. All the stuff he's doing, he will fit like a glove. Now, he's going to come off the bench most likely. He's playing Mason Falslev's position, so there's not going to be a whole lot of room for him there. He got AJ Bates at the point guard, and Callahan's not a point guard. He's more of Colby King in terms of positional archetype, but really love the utility that he's going to have and the chaos he's going to cause. He's going to run around the court all over the place. Teams are going to have to chase him, and that's just going to create openings. Obviously, he's going to hit his shots, but it's going to create openings for other players.
Give me your biggest concern with this roster going into the Pac-12.
AJ Bates' shooting percentages. Now,
really?
I have a breakdown on him that'll be coming out probably tomorrow.
Oh, I can't wait for this.
I went pretty deep on, okay, how does this potentially get fixed? And to sum it up in the broadest strokes, he took so many inefficient shots at Louisiana Tech that it really dragged down his percentages and I think his confidence. Because if you strip away the inefficient shots, he actually still shot bad on the good shots too. The open 3-pointers, some of the layups, he wasn't a great finisher at the rim. But I think the confidence aspect of that is there as well, where players having confidence in themselves, when you miss 5 straight shots, and they're bad shots, so they're hard to hit. Suddenly you've got the open 3-pointer, and you've got 5 missed shots ringing in the back of your head, and you miss the wide open shot. Because when you look at AJ Bates' jump shot, it is pure, it is smooth, it looks fantastic, and he's so crafty when he gets into the lane to generate good shots, mid-range shots, even if he's not getting to the rim. So I think when it comes to Utah State, where Louisiana Tech, like they couldn't generate a whole lot of good shots. He was dragging that offense, kicking and screaming, trying to make it an effective offense. And he ended up taking a lot of bad shots in that effort. So coming to Utah State, where he's playing next to Mason Falslev, he's got really good bigs he's going to be able to pass to. He's not going to have to take on this massive scoring load to force himself to take all of these really difficult shots. And that's going to help him shoot better, and then it's going to give him confidence, and so it's going to bleed over. At least that's the theory.
So the last time I was on this show, we talked about his pick and roll ability.
Yes.
Let me ask you, I don't know if you have this answer or not, how often, even at Log Tech, was he coming off a pick and roll? If there was a pick and roll, was he shooting it? And how often was he just passing it? I mean, is there a...
Yes.
Really?
Like I think...
And would you consider those inefficient shots as coming off the pick and roll?
Well, it depends, because some of them were. Like, a lot of his shots were high difficulty attempts. And because he did a lot of scoring out of the pick and roll, like, I think of all the players, he had one of the highest rates of Like the highest percentage of his scoring came out of the pick and roll than like anybody else. He's like top 20, top 30 as far as like he does so much pick and roll compared to everything else.
Sure.
So, and that also includes his passing. You know, he had like 200 plus assists, and a lot of I don't remember the exact number, but a lot of those were pick and roll. You know, passing to the roll man or passing to a cutter while doing a pick and roll because it opens up somebody on the backside.
Gotcha.
So he scores a ton of the pick and roll. Now he's gonna still do a lot of pick and roll, although there's gonna be some different aspects, but it's basically still ball screen offense. So he won't be doing as much just pure high pick and roll because like you're watching a Louisiana Tech game and especially AJ Bates scoring highlights, every play high pick and roll. Like it feels like almost every single play it's high pick and roll. So he'll still do some of that. He'll do he'll diversify a little bit in Ben Jacobson's offense. But still, like he works really well in ball screen situations because he's really good at reading the defenses. He's good at manipulating defense because that's kind of the sign of like a really good point guard is not just taking what comes to you. Like you're going to do that. Like good players will take what comes to them. They're not going to force, something just because they want to. They will take what comes to them. Even better point guards will force the defense into a pressure point where they have to go one way or the other. And then they'll take, the player will take what comes to them. So think Chris Paul, whenever you watched him play, John Stockton, they're forcing the defense to commit to them to keep them from scoring or to stay on the big, at which point, the guard goes and scores. And AJ Bates does that a lot where he forces the defense, little fakes. Sometimes he plays in kind of slow motion, lulling the defense to sleep. And then suddenly he's lobbing a pass to, a center who's about to dunk it, or he'll hit a mid-range shot or hit a floater or get to the rim. And you're not sure how because the defender was on his hip the entire time, but he's 6'3" and 200 pounds. He's not necessarily going to be bothered by the little point guard who's guarding him. So there is a lot to really like about AJ Bates if he gets his shooting percentage. Like if he comes next year and shoots 44%, which is I think maybe technically below average for a point guard, but like if he's able to shoot 43, 44%, shoot 33, 34% from three, he would very likely be the second best player on the Aggies. Just with his scoring, his passing, haven't even got to some of his defense, where he's obviously big and strong. He's able to make an impact there as well.
What would you like to see his shot attempt average at per game? With Mason, with Carson, with some of the guys, Hornseth on the court, and his ability to be a playmaker and pass the ball, and it's good, better, best, right? Good shot, better shot, best shot is available. Where should his average attempts be at? Where were they at before, and where should they be now? Yeah,
so last year, and I had to look this up just to double check because that's a good question because I've kind of thought of that myself. So he's at 11.1 last year, 11.1 field goal attempts per game.
Wow.
I think that should probably drop down to at least 8. Partly just trimming off some of the inefficient field goals, but part of that is just because he's going to come into an offense where one, he's the secondary at best to Mason Falslev, but also Will Hornseth, who's going to be I think he's going to be in that top 3, top 4 scorers. So, and I think that one of Braden Bowe or Kingston Tosi is actually going to surprisingly be in that top 3 or 4 scoring as well.
Wow, I like this take.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see them as well. So AJ Bates has a decent chance of being the second leading scorer. There's pretty darn good odds that he's in the top 3, at worst top 4. But I think you'll see him take between 7 and 9 field goal attempts per game. I think that would be a sweeter spot. Trim off some of the inefficient shots. But still, as someone who's going to be leading this offense, doing a lot of these ball screen situations, playing a 2-man game where he and Will Hornseth or he and Colin Mulholland are going back and forth, passing handoffs, trying to work the defense and create an opening, he's going to have a lot of situations where, based on what the defense does, he needs to be able to go out and score. And when you look at Trey Campbell last year for Northern Iowa, he's actually a pretty good comp. Like if you go watch what Trey Campbell did at Northern Iowa, it looks a lot like what I would expect AJ Bates to be doing this year for Utah State.
I know we got to go to break here, but when we come back, I want to ask you how this affects Mason Falslev. Like, you talked about Hornseth, right? There's Carson, but how does this affect Mason's offense? Does it get him more looks? I mean, and is it backdoor cuts along the baseline? Is this, pop and shot from mid range? Is it threes? Like, what does his offense look like with a new point guard at the helm?
Yeah, so we'll discuss that coming up next here on the Full Court Press. Pick it up and go. Live Young Rentals are here at Young Power Sports. Hit the road, trails, or water with the newest machines. No hassle, just ride. Call 435-755-7111. That's 435-755-7111. Want to get some text on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line 7994 saying Ajay could play in a 5 foot and under league and still look up to everyone.
And I'd be the MVP.
You would.
I know, I seriously would be. I'd be the best player on the court.
Thought about playing in a 6 foot and under league.
Really?
Yeah.
You'd be good.
I don't know if they have any around here.
I remember when I played pickleball with you guys that one time, and I was like, I don't belong on this court with you. You got some skills.
I'm starting to get a few of them back.
You got some skill. I was actually kind of impressed. I was like, all right, this guy, he's, I thought he'd be more like Greg Oden, but he didn't say he's a Greg Ostertag, and I was impressed with that, man.
I can dribble, I can pass, and I have 2 post moves. So
that's all you need.
That's all I need.
That's all you need, man.
So,
hey, I was asking you about Mason Fultz as we were going into the break.
Yep.
With what AJ Bates can do. With the lineup that they're going to have, that starting 5 could be really, really good too. And with the way this offense is going to be designed, how does it affect Mason's numbers offensively? Or how does it affect maybe his game? Or does it at all?
I think it does. Like, obviously, we don't always think of like how point guards and shooting guards specifically play with each other.
Sure.
A lot of times you're thinking of how point guards play with the bigs and pick and roll. But obviously, everyone is playing off of each other, and a lot of actions that, well, any team runs, but Northern Iowa also, they are having, there's a lot of overlap. There are guards who, you'll have you'll have the big who's waiting to hand it off to somebody, fakes the handoff to one player, then passes it to another player, and everyone being a threat helps spread out the defense.
I agree.
And so that opens up things for Mason. So just having other players on the court is something that really, that helps everyone. So having someone like AJ Bates who, once everything, gets together, like just having these good players on the court. It doesn't always matter the exact archetype. Does having a point guard of the archetype of AJ Bates unlock Mason Falslev? Not necessarily. There's no specific teammate that Mason has to have to unlock his talents. But having a good player, someone that the Aggies can run the offense to, and I mean, in a lot of cases, AJ Bates is going to find, great passes to Mason where he's cutting off ball. But I mean, Drake Allen did that too. So did Darius Brown. So I mean, Mason hasn't been lacking a player like AJ Bates, but it's something that helps him maintain what he's been throughout his entire career with the Aggies.
I like that. Would you call AJ Bates a traditional point guard?
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, the amount of pick and roll, that's something you associate with your more traditional point guards. Just But his shooting volume wouldn't say he's a traditional point guard. But if you put him in the right offense, I feel like in the way you talked about his numbers and his ability as a playmaker, in finding teammates, I honestly I'd put him as a traditional point guard. Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about traditional point guard and you think someone who doesn't pass a whole lot, like John Stockton, but like John Stockton's like one of the few players in NBA history who fits into this pass first, doesn't really shoot a whole lot. But John Stockton was still averaging in like the 16, 17 points per game,
give or take,
at times in his career. And you think, okay, who are all the greatest point guards in history? They're guys who can score. They can put the ball in the bucket. Yeah. And so if you say traditional point guard, like traditional point guard is Isaiah Thomas, the Pistons one, not the Celtics one. It's Magic Johnson. Get a little bit closer to our time, Steve Nash. Sure, a lot of these guys were racking up assists, but they're also pretty darn good at scoring it too. And so AJ Bates fits into that mold where it's like he can score. Now, again, I have concerns over his shooting percentages, but he is crafty. He can score. He can go off. Just go look at his numbers from late in the season. He had like 3 games of 26 plus points. Or 27 plus points in the final 4 or 5 games of the year, including a 34-point game where he was just going off scoring wise and still dishing out some assists in those games. So Bates, I mean, he does fit a more prototypical version of the point guard with his production and a bit with his style, with obviously a bit of that old school flair and just how much he's able to run your just traditional high pick and roll over and over and over again. Yeah. But looking at this roster, and I kind of wanted to answer the question we looked at the beginning, like where does this team stand up?
Yeah, sorry, I kind of
with you're good, because we kind of dove into some of the position groups, talked about how good they are, and I think if you compare the Aggies to the rest of the Pac-12, I think they match up fairly well. They are leaning into their strengths. You can see the strengths of what Ben Jacobson wants his team to do: defensive rebounders, 5-out offense, guys who can run in ball screen offense, and guys who can work off ball and on ball, guys who can shoot off the bounce. He's going to have to kind of work Mason. Mason hasn't really been much of an off the bounce scorer. No. So he's going to have to add a little bit more of that to his game. He's got like 1 off the bounce, and that's his little like runner in the paint. So he'll have to add a little bit more, but still he's going to be just fine in this offense. So Ben Jacobson is building a team that, to his liking, to his style, to his coaching style, and he's getting talented players in doing so. And if you look at the rest of the league, like Boise State, they are adding some talented players, but I like Utah State's roster over Boise State's. Look at Colorado State. I think Colorado State's roster is fantastic, but I think the Aggies can definitely stand up to them.
Why?
I think you got enough size to be able to handle guys like Kyle Jorgensen and Rashawn Mbemba. And I like the defensive ability this team's going to have. And you've got better guards than Colorado State. Their front court probably has a little bit more ability to score and maybe shoot throughs. Like Kyle Jorgensen is probably the best front court player if you're matching up Utah State and Colorado State. Jorgensen is the best big out of both teams. But it's not this giant chasm because Will Hornstedt's going to be pretty solid. Carson Templin, they were able to, after Jorgensen went off in that first half, they shut him down. And Templin played a big role in that. So I think that they would be able to stack up well. And, there were questions about Colorado State's defense last year, and I don't think they really solved any of them. So I think that Utah State would be able to stack up, pretty well. It would be an interesting clash of styles, though, because that's, Ben Jacobson coached
absolutely
Brooke Manesh. And, and with Gonzaga, like, that's just going to be a tough matchup anyway. Like, maybe they win, maybe they don't. It's gonna depend. Like, do they stack up with Gonzaga's roster? I don't know. Partly because Gonzaga's roster hasn't really materialized yet, but they do have probably the 2 best transfers. Like, if you stacked all the transfers that have come into the Pac-12, Gonzaga's got number 1 and number 2. So this is going to be a tough team to take down with Gonzaga, the kind of player, they've got the best returning front court player in the conference in Braden Huff, the guy who's going to be competing with Mason Falslev for preseason player of the year. And then Isaiah Harwell's a solid transfer. Diop, I can't pronounce his first name, the kid from Arizona State.
Oh, man,
he's going to be arguably the best center.
Yeah, he's a problem.
So that's going to be a tough team for the Aggies to take down. But I think with the talent they're assembling, I think that there's certainly a chance. And then I think while Oregon State and Washington State are certainly stacking transfers, I don't think that they're assembling a roster that is necessarily any better than the Aggies. And Utah State's going to have more continuity. They've got players coming in from, they got Will Hornseth coming from Northern Iowa that can help on the player side of things. Everyone get adjusted to Ben Jacobson's style. You've got, Mason and Carson have played together. Braden Bowe and Kingston Tosi haven't played on the court during a game, but they've spent a whole year. So you have a decent chunk of your rotation have played together for an entire year. So I think Utah State benefits from continuity there. So there's really only one team in this entire conference that I think just surpasses the Aggies in roster talent, and that's Gonzaga. Everyone else, you can debate it. You can debate it so that maybe you say San Diego State could have a slightly more talented roster. At this point, I'd say the Aggies have a more talented roster. You could argue Colorado State and Utah State one way or the other. You can go back and forth, and I think that would be a healthy debate. But it's a debate, and Utah State is right up there with anyone else in the conference, save for Gonzaga. I almost called them Gonzaga State. but
it would fit now.
Yeah, it would fit. But then, Utah State, again, it's not this giant gap between them and Gonzaga.
Okay, so let me ask you, it's kind of an unfair question, too, because, it's more nitpicky than anything. How many of the teams do you think we are better with? I say we. This Utah State men's basketball team is better with backcourt, and how many of these teams are we better than with our front court?
So let's see. Backcourt, let's go through all the teams. Backcourt compared to Boise State, it's definitely Utah State. Colorado State, it's probably still Utah State, though it's a bit closer.
Holy cow, really?
Pasquarelli's still solid. Jace Butler, Jojo McIver are nice, but again, you have the best player among all those in Mason Falslev, and I think AJ Bates stacks up pretty well against any of those guys. With Fresno State's, their roster isn't quite full yet, but still.
I'll take our Aggie squad too.
Yeah, still Utah State. For Gonzaga, they've not really added any front court or back court players, so kind of by default, it's the Aggies there. With Oregon State, Daniel Freitag, I think is how you say it. You have Josiah Lake coming back, so that's where it's actually getting fairly close. Where they got some pretty solid backcourt players, but again, leaning toward the Aggies. San Diego State, you have Latrell Davis, LZ Harrington.
I'd still take us.
Yeah, I think I would still take the Aggies, though, even with those fairly talented players there. Texas State, again, they don't really have any returning veterans or incoming transfers. They don't have any incoming transfers that I know of, but their returners aren't returning much. So, and then Washington State, I'd probably still pick the Aggies. So right now, like, maybe I'm putting the blue goggles on, but I'd say the Aggies are the best backcourt in the Mountain West. And the only teams that are really coming close at this point are Colorado State and Oregon State. As far as the front court, Utah State's probably not going to do nearly as well. I'd say Boise State, they added a really nice forward, like a versatile forward, and then a JUCO transfer. I'm not sure how well that's going to translate. So you might lean toward the Aggies right now, where I think Will Hornseth and Carson Templin are pretty solid. Colorado State has a better front court, in my opinion. Probably still better than Fresno State. Definitely not better than Gonzaga. Gonzaga's got easily the best front court in the conference.
Yeah.
Oregon State, depends on how good you think Xavier Stanton and Dennis Evans can be. Because they're raw, but they're talented and tall and long. And it's like, if they can be something, they can cause some problems, but I think the Aggies have more experience and are a little bit more refined than those incoming players. So you'd probably lean toward the Aggies unless those guys can really show something. San Diego State, Jeremiah Cherry is probably the best big if you're comparing the two teams, but from top to bottom, you'd probably go with the Aggies. Texas State, do like DJ Hall is kind of a power forward. I don't know, depending on where you put, because he's 6'7", is he a small forward, power forward? But again, they don't have much of a roster, so you kind of go with the Aggies mostly on default. But I think even when Texas State finishes their roster, the Aggies will probably have a better front court. Washington State, a lot of interesting players. Probably lean toward the Aggies still, though there are some interesting guys that they're adding that front court. So I guess the Aggies coming about third or fourth.
It's not bad
in the front court. So, yeah, not doing too bad there. Let's see. Let me double check the Young Power Sports of Logan text line. 2305 with a couple of texts that rolled in a little bit earlier in the show. Good to see Ajay on board today as he adds a lot of info to the broadcast.
Oh, that's kind of him.
Yeah. Also, why don't the Aggies add a tournament where they are the host like they did in the days of the Gosner tournament? Seems to me it would be a good way to save money by not having to travel, although you would have to put up money to pay for teams to come in. What are your thoughts?
So the biggest problem for Utah State in the past has been their scheduling. Like, they can't get teams to come to the Spectrum for obvious reasons. They can't even get teams to let them come to their place and play them for obvious reasons. When we talked to Ben Jacobson, had a conversation with him, he said, and I asked him about scheduling specifically, he said, we need to get a lot of home games. We need a lot of home games to allow ourselves to be, perform in front of our crowd. And I think a lot of teams, with the exception of Stu Morrill, kind of surrendered themselves to just going on the road. And look, it worked for Gonzaga, right? I mean, now they're a prominent premier team in the country, but for Utah State, that's not the case. I am all about what 2305 is saying. Give me a 3-game, 3-night tournament. Like, look, the Gosner Classic, I get it. You're playing St. Biscuits and butter from, Chesapeake, Africa. And then you're playing, no biscuits with no jam from freaking Kennesaw, Africa. And, so you're playing all these no-name teams, but fans came. Yeah. I thought it was well attended, honestly. I thought, 3 games in 3 days. You get 3 home games that you can get rid of. That's 16 non-conference games these coaches have to find. 16 now.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That is a ton of games. Even for Wes Brooks, I was talking to him about it. It's hard to find that many games. And it's even harder for men's basketball at Utah State because not a lot of teams want to play these guys, either here or at their own place. So I'm all about the Gosner Classic, a 3-game and 3-night tournament. I know, again, you weren't playing a whole lot of teams, but it was good. You had Weber State at times, I think. You probably get Utah Tech or Southern Utah to come. I'm all about it.
Do you think that instead of having one in Logan specifically, they could instead wrangle something where it's hosted in Salt Lake?
No. It depends who you're playing.
That's just something that can't happen?
And 2 reasons. One, you got to be able to sell the tickets. And you got to get fans to be able to want to go, right? And I just don't know how many teams are willing to do that. And because BYU ain't going to play us, right? Utah ain't going to play us.
Yeah, basically have an MTE in Salt Lake, essentially.
But then, who do you get that's going to be sexy enough for fans to want to travel and go watch?
Yeah. You might be able to get some high mid-major teams, maybe, because getting to Salt Lake is easier. I think that's a big barrier is that teams have a trouble coming to Logan. They don't want to travel to Logan. So if you say, well, go to Salt Lake, the airport's there, the hotels are there, the stadium's really nice. I wonder if that would be more attractive, but it does have the downside of the Aggies are selling fewer tickets, although if it's a sexy enough matchup, there's a decent number of fans. There's also there's fans on the Wasatch Front.
Because not even the Beehive Classic sold well. It struggled really badly. It underperformed massively. So, and that's with BYU, that's with Utah, that's with Weber State. You can't get fans to go to those games. How are you going to get, fans to come to these ones now? So, you're right. A high mid-major. Give me if you could get, I don't know, Memphis.
Well, that's where if you're playing your Memphis, your St. Mary's, Wichita State, if you're trying to, maybe someone from the A-10, at that point, that's a long trip for them. But it would have to be something like an MTE. If it's just a neutral site game in Salt Lake where you're playing some random, that's where with 2305, having your multi-team event and bringing other teams in, because it was just a one-off in the Delta Center.
Yeah.
if that's the only way you can play them, I guess.
But it was Illinois State. You got. I mean, and no offense to Illinois State, great people. I'm sure they're nice people over there.
That should have just been a home and home.
Yeah, it shouldn't be played in the Delta Center. Like if you're gonna do that, you got to get someone premier to do it.
We got to take a break and we come back. We got a few more texts rolling in on this and a few other topics to get through as we roll through today's show. But we'll be back here on the Full Court Press. It's the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Egbert Anderson.
Haha, yes, Egbert. Hey, no, cannot say that name. That is my username when we commit an incredibly sweet, rich heist and I escape the country.
There we go.
So please,
It's like it was Egbert.
My identity.
Keep your identity secret. We have a few texts on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line. 2409, kind of carrying over the topic from last hour, saying, yeah, let's play another game in Salt Lake. 1,500 fans show up instead of 10,000. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I'm with them.
I get that. Like, what?
Yeah.
I don't know why. Like, if you're going to play like BYU or Utah, like, yeah, of course, even then, like, why you're playing an in-state team at the Delta Center.
That
like,
shouldn't be
playing
happening.
at home. Like, I don't like how many times you end up playing neutral site games. Like, why were we playing San Francisco a couple of years ago at the Golden State, Warriors arena? Like, it's 20 minutes from their campus.
Didn't we play them at the Delta Center too?
Yeah, then we came and played them at the Delta Center. Like, they basically did a home and home, but it was a neutral. Like, what are we even doing?
What are we doing? Yeah, those games, again, if you're playing like a Creighton, a Duke, a North Carolina, a UConn, right? Or we even be more realistic in Arizona, something like that, then yeah, you definitely probably have that as a neutral site game.
Yeah, if that's the only way you can do it.
And I think that's the only way Arizona would do it as well. I mean, they played San Diego State on neutral court. So
yeah, like if the only way you can get a solid opponent is through a neutral site, I get it. I don't like it, but I get it.
I do.
But you should be playing Illinois State at home or do a home and home. Like doing a home and home with Illinois State's not the worst thing in the world.
Hey, and in regards to the quad effect of that, if Arizona were to lose to Utah State inside the Spectrum, it doesn't hurt them that much, does it?
No, I mean, there's some, there have been people who have literally been going around to power conferences with slideshows basically talking about how you don't want to lose to a mid-major team because it hurts your prestige.
That's not.
But as far as the metrics, no, it doesn't hurt them because Utah State's perennially top 40. They're a quad. So if you lost to them, it'd be a quad 1 loss. If you lost on the road, it'd be a quad 1 loss. Sure, some casuals would look down their nose at losing to Utah State, but like anyone who knows ball knows that losing to Utah State is not a bad thing.
Inside the Spectrum is not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah. Interesting thing here with 9015 saying, did you see how the CW is going to be on ESPN? How much will this help the Pac-12?
Wait, what?
So the CW, they're going to have some of their sporting events. Yeah. You'll be able to find them, I believe, on the ESPN app.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So I was actually wondering this too. I've asked a couple of people over at the university because for Utah State women's basketball, it's a simulcast, radio and the stream.
Yeah.
How is that going to change next year if it does change? And there's still 50-50 on it. Like there's a chance that it'll be simulcast still, so you're on radio. And I actually really, really, really like that. No offense to anybody else who wants to be a TV broadcaster, but I actually enjoy having people being able to listen to me and then watch the game without having to be able to mute me and watch the game. And so I would actually be great with that if they could simulcast it. But yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think there needs to be something because where you had the Mountain West Network where you're able to pull up the app because no TV networks are carrying softball and soccer. They should be carrying Aggie soccer, but
amen.
But they're not. So you got to have some place where ideally it's free because the Mountain West Network's going to be paid next year, and that's a slap in the face to all their fans.
Wait, they got to pay next year for
Mountain West Network's going to be paid. You got to pay for it.
Atta girl, Gloria. That's what I'm talking about. Get some.
So you've got to be able to have this free, just stream the game, and it's not going to be this massive rating things, but allow fans to watch pretty much every single game.
Yeah,
and I'm still not 100% sure that's how that's going to look. Is there going to be a Pac-12 streaming app? Is it going to be the CW or USA Network producing? How all that's going to work? Maybe it's through this where it's the CW kind of takes those on.
So would that be like an ESPN Plus thing?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure how that's going to work.
I'm really intrigued by that now.
Yeah, the exact logistics I'm not sure, but let's say the CW tags their name on a lot of those, again, your Olympic sports, non-revenue sports. They say, hey, it's streaming on the CW, but they put it on ESPN. That would, you do have to pay for ESPN, so I know we finished making fun of the Mountain West for that, but at least it's ESPN. As opposed to paying for the Mountain West Network, you're getting, it's more exposure. That's something that you're looking at, so.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point. Okay.
Yeah, we got to hit a break, though.
Okay. When we come back, I've got a massive question for you all.
All right.
When we come back.
All right, we'll get that when we come back. Napa Auto Parts has wiper blades, headlights, batteries, all in stock and on sale. You can get Chemical Guys car wash and detailing kits for only $49.99. Air fresheners, shop towels, seafoam, and more. Find it all at your locally owned Napa Auto Parts stores. They got locations from Preston all the way down to Providence. 8003 saying, nobody better mute Ajay.
No. Wait. All right. All right there.
I couldn't resist doing that.
All right. You moldy corn dog.
That might be the most insulting thing I've ever been called.
I want 8003 back. I want him in the studio. Come in the studio and come run the board for Jason. Now.
You probably do a better job than me.
All right.
So you had a question,
I have
Ajay.
a question, Jason.
We had a couple minutes here before the hour break.
Oh, don't try to rush me. Okay, this is an important. I want to ask Aggie Nation a question. So,
All right.
a few weeks ago, there was a conversation about hanging jerseys in the rafters, right? I mean, you have J.C. Carroll, you have Wayne Estes, Williams, Green, Grant, right? And people talk about how Mason Faltov is going to be in there. Which I would agree with. And so then I came up with the idea, like who would you have on the next list or the waiting list of having their jersey in the rafter in men's basketball? I would have, and I put a list together, but then I thought about it, and I messed up big time. So I have Sam Merrill next on the list, without a doubt, no question. I don't want any buts about it. He's next. I left off somebody, and I want to know what Aggie Nation thinks. How come we don't put Tony Brown in the great conversation anymore? That guy won us an NCAA tournament game against Ohio State in 2001. He was the leader of that basketball team. He's a local cat, played at Mount Crest High School, really good over there too. I want to know why we don't talk about Tony Brown. This includes myself. I was actually really angry with myself that I didn't think about Tony Brown. In fact, it's probably got I'm not speaking for him. I would be peeved if I was Tony Brown. Like, I did all this for this great university. I was, I don't know. And nobody talks about him.
Is he in their Hall of Fame?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
We talk about JC, we talk about Mason, we talk about Sam. We don't talk about Tony Brown. Why?
It's difficult because when you're talking about hanging jerseys in the rafters, to me, the barrier for entry needs to be incredibly high. Like, to the point where there are good players who are left out. And I think Hall of Fame should be that as well. I'm talking more. We had this conversation kind of yesterday with the NFL and NBA, where I feel like in some cases the barrier for entry is too low.
Oh, it's low.
For the Hall of Fame, especially for basketball. Football's not as bad.
Football's bad.
Yeah. So, and this is where it becomes tough because Tony Brown has a case to be one of the better Aggies of all time. But you're talking about players who have their names hung in the rafters because that's the player who scored the most points. That's the player who won the most games in an Aggie uniform. That's the guy who has the most rebounds and blocks. And that's the player who had one of the most iconic shots and is like second all-time scoring. Like, that's the kind of things you have to be able to say about a guy. And because you talk about Tony Brown, you could start going down the list of things with like Ty Wesley and Neemias Queta. He's someone who might miss the cut. And Justin Bean
will miss the cut. Neemias Queta will miss the cut.
So they're like, to me, there needs to be this high bar, and that means that there are players who are fantastic who are going to miss the cut.
We're going to the next hour with this.
Yeah, we are. We'll carry it over. We got to hit a break here. We'll be back on the Full Court Press coming up next. Welcome on back in to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Ajay Salveson. You're on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM The Fan, streaming online at 1069thefan.com and on the 1069 The Fan mobile app, and streaming live on YouTube. The Fan at KLGN is where you can tune in to watch me and Ajay, or usually me and Eric. But today we got Ajay filling in for Eric Frandsen, as Eric is gallivanting down in Salt Lake or something. So we had to bring Ajay in, the pinch hitter.
Surprised you didn't ask your boy JD, have the Walker and Walker show.
JD is really busy this week. So.
Oh, is he? Wow. Is he, buying Bobby Wagner posters? Golly.
He's got a lot on his plate with KVNU, where he's running the morning show. So.
Wow. He's busy.
He's usually pretty busy. So.
Okay. All right. Well, Jason Waker, it's good to be here.
It's good to have you on.
Take that. Put your pipe and smoke it.
A couple things on the text line and also the YouTube chat. I wanted to get to this real quick. So we're talking about Utah State's roster last hour.
Yeah.
Kind of going position group by position group, mostly the front court, back court, stacking things up with the, how it looks the rest of the Pac-12, though. Toma 2526 USU on YouTube saying, compare this year's team to last year's team position for position. Centers are definite upgrade. Hornseth is more athletic than Templin, who is more efficient than Clark. Mason is Mason, etc.
Wow, I like this.
Yeah, I'd say the front court, definite upgrade. Sean Feltz, Colin Mulholland, that's going to be an upgrade over Zach Keller. Obviously, bringing in Will Hornseth is going to be, Will Hornseth and Carson Templin is going to be better than Carson Templin and Gary Clark, I think. So the front court, definite upgrade. On the wing, just definitely a downgrade, I think. And backcourt, maybe downgrade depending on where you're fitting MJ Collins.
Man, I love Drake, though.
Yeah, Drake is really good. So, like as far as AJ Bates and Drake Allen, it'll probably mostly be a wash. Offensively, AJ, again, I think he can be as good, probably better on offense than Drake Allen. But Drake Allen was so dang good on defense in a way that I'm not sure awesome. AJ Bates is going to replicate.
Yeah.
Mason is probably going to be a better version of himself this next year than he was last year. So there's some slight improvement there. So I'd say the front court is definitely an upgrade. The wing, it's either the wing is a big downgrade and the back court is kind of a wash, or wings are maybe they're probably still, because like Adlin Elamine and MJ Collins versus Braden Bowe, Kingston Tosi, Solomon Callahan, like that just does not compare. So you're seeing some upgrades in the front court. The back court will kind of see like AJ Bates, Mason, and Solomon. Like if we're moving Saul Callahan to the back court, like defining the line between the wing and the back court is a little tricky. Hard. But let's say Drake, Mason, and Colby King and Elijah Perryman versus AJ Mason, Solomon Callahan, and Ace Reiser. Probably. That's just really close. I don't know. I was kind of maybe leaning toward last year, but like that's mostly just uncertainty about what these guys are going to look like this year. So whereas last year's a known quantity, it's easy to know who they are, and it's harder to know what this year's roster is going to be. But talent-wise, I think they compare pretty well.
So we also had a conversation that we leaked in. We're going to leak into this hour because I have to. By the way, congrats to Bobby Wagner having his jersey retired for football. I think that's very well-deserved, extremely well-deserved. It's a no-brainer. Great job by Cam Walker and his crew of putting that together and getting Bobby out. Obviously he's giving the commencement speech. Was that today or yes? Is that tomorrow?
I don't know when commencement is.
I think it's this week. I think it's either today or tomorrow. But again, congrats to Bobby Wagner. But a few weeks ago, there was a conversation. I can't remember how. I think I started it too. My bad. But there was a conversation about jersey retirements, or at least jerseys in the Raptors in the side of the spectrum for men's basketball. You look at the names on the list right now who are currently there. J.C. Carroll being the most recent one from a couple of years ago. And Sam Merrill is obviously and should be and will be the very next one on that list coming up down the line. When saying that, I think I had put a list together on Twitter, and I wasn't really thinking about what I was doing before I tweeted it out. That's how Twitter grows. And
That's what Twitter is built for.
Yeah, that's what it says. It's built to put out stupid stuff.
It's the written version. It's the written version of speaking before you think.
Absolutely, it is. And so, excuse me. I put Neemias Queta on the list. I put obviously Sam Merrill, Justin Bean on the list, Mason Faltov on the list. Out of those guys, 2 of them deserve it. Sam Merrill, Mason Faltov. The other 2, Neemias and Justin, great guys. No. Ty Wesley, no. But a guy that I should have put on that list, and I think absolutely positively deserves it, is Tony Brown. Local cat, out of Cache Valley, played his ball at Mount Crest High School, came to Utah State. Utah State won an NCAA tournament game. They beat Ohio State, and I led by Tony Brown, by the way. And I know his senior year kind of fell off the cliff, not to his fault, and they end up in the NIT, lost a home game to Hawaii. I think it's when, if I remember, Al Lewis told me the story, or I remember Al Lewis calling the game. I was listening to it. Someone threw, it was either, I think, a piece of gum on the court, or it was a cheeseburger. And
that's quite a wide range of items.
I know, but I can't remember. Hal, if you're listening,
something crazy.
It was either gum or, but I remember Stu Morrill picked up the PA mic and was like, "Quit throwing on the floor." Like, I mean, it was hilarious. So right, and Utah State ended up losing that game to Hawaii in the NIT. And I wonder if that took some of the shine off of Tony Brown's career, is because they didn't go to another NCAA tournament game. I don't think the rest of the way. And lost in the NIT to Hawaii in the opener. Tony Brown is one of the greats in Utah State men's basketball history, and nobody considers him. Like J.C. Carroll, when you talk about the greats, you think about J.C. Carroll, you think about Sam Merrill. Some actually put Darius Brown in that. Tony Brown is without a doubt should be in the top 5.
Yeah, I think, and I'm uninformed. I'm going to have to report as generally uninformed on this because I was only just getting out of running around and saying goo goo gaga around the time Tony Brown was playing.
Sure.
So I was, of course, that generally makes me uninformed once you go back even further, talking about some other all-time greats. But yeah, like I think when it comes to hanging jerseys in the rafters, the biggest thing for me, as I was saying kind of at the end of last hour, it just comes down to,
yeah, give me your criteria for your jersey to be in the rafter, please.
Usually it comes down to you were, how do I put this into words? It's kind of like what I was saying last hour, where like you look in the rafters, who's up there? Okay, J.C. Carroll, all-time points leader.
Yes.
Wayne Estes,
no questions.
Best player in Utah State basketball history, especially relative to his era. Greg Grant. He was probably only second to Wayne Estes by the time he retired. The all-around player that he was, the dominance that he had.
Is it Nate Williams? Nate
is Nate's number up there?
Dude.
The
Green, Cornell Green, right?
Yeah, Cornell Green's up there.
And I gotta look at Cornell Green's numbers, but
Cornell Green was when Justin Bean was, or maybe it was somebody else. There's another player whose name I'm forgetting who was like teammates with Nate Williams, whose name I can't remember for some dumb reason. I'm going to look it up really quick here.
Well, and while you're looking that up, and again, I get people say Neemias Queta, and I get it. And Neemias Queta is one of the freaking greats. He was amazing, but he only played 3 years of basketball here at Utah State. And as I've talked to others and I've had conversations and I've thought about it and done a little bit more research, Ty Wesley, I think, would be getting in over Neemias Queta. He was an All-American, a 2-time All-American.
I don't know if Wesley was an All-American. Like maybe he was.
No, he was an All-American. Yeah, he's
I think you're right.
On the side of the building where the fitness center is.
Yeah, you're right.
He's on that list.
I just had that same picture come into my head. I was like, yeah, he probably was.
He's an All-American.
He wasn't like a consensus, but I think he was on
Marv Roberts. That's who. Okay,
that's the one I was forgetting.
Thank you, 8968. God bless you. Thank you. It's bothering me.
I had Xavier McDaniel in my head for some reason.
The Knicks player?
No, it was he played for the Sonics way back when. Like back in the 80s.
Yeah, but then I swear.
Did he play for the Knicks as well?
Yeah, I swear
he probably did.
Knicks,
but I remember watching I was doing research on a game where he used to play for the Sonics.
Okay.
So that's what, and I was doing that recently. That's why Xavier McDaniel's name was in my head. But Marv Roberts was the guy I was thinking of.
Thank you, 8968. God bless you.
So yeah, Marv Roberts, like I'm pretty sure he's up there.
Yes.
If he's not, he should be. So, and like when Justin Bean was chasing all the rebound records, I think initially I thought there were Cornell Greens that like all the rebounding records belonged to Marv Roberts. When fans talk about, making the run to what was technically the Elite Eight, but there was only like 20 teams in the tournament.
Yeah.
But like that was Marv Roberts and Nate Williams. Both of them go to the NBA. I think the problem is, like, if we were to rewrite the criteria for whose names should be up there, you might also consider taking Cornell Green down, to be honest. And that's kind of the problem you have, is that when they went up there, Cornell Green absolutely deserved to be up there. Yeah. But then, like, later guys surpassed them, and then, like, but you still want to keep it an exclusive club. Like, Jeff Hornacek's name probably shouldn't be hanging from the rafters in the Delta Center.
No, it shouldn't be.
And that's why people like try and argue about Andre Karolinko having his jersey, hung up.
I don't think it should be in the rafters.
I don't think it's like, was he a good player? And like, people say, oh, he was a player before his time. Well, it's like, well,
the only players I think should be in there are Eaton, Stockton, Malone, Jerry Sloan.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's it.
Who was the other coach that's name?
Frank Layden.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have any problem with him being up there.
I guess Frank Layden. Yeah.
Larry Miller is technically kind of up there.
Larry Miller's up there because it's Larry Miller.
Yeah, it's like you got these like non-players. Like we can. So you can get into that.
But okay, so that leads me to something else. So take. Yeah, Mason Faltz, right? And his criteria fits everything. He checks all the boxes.
Yeah.
Conference Player of the Year. He's not All-American though, but he's
not made All-American.
He's won Player of the Year. He has won a couple conference championships. He has and he's won NCAA tournament games, right? And I know, like, we're looking at the bare bones of what you need to do, because, like, if you do that at North Carolina, they're like, congratulations, here's yourself a popsicle. Go watch the game in the stands.
Yeah.
But what? I mean, the legacy, and I think this is the biggest thing, is the legacy that it creates. Mason Faltz of legacy. Sam Merrill, legacy. Wayne Estes, J.C. Carroll, legacy guys. I would put Marv Roberts up there. I put Gray Grant up there, obviously. But Tony Brown has a legacy. Like, what are we doing here, man?
It's tricky, because, like, part of what I think holds Tony Brown back is he wasn't statistically dominant. Like Cornell Green, that's part of where, like, he put up a lot of points and rebounds. Marv Roberts, Wayne Estes, go down the list of all the guys whose names are hanging in their jerseys or hanging from the rafters. It's because, well, that person's number 1 in points, that person's number 2 in points, that person's number 5 in points, and number 1 in rebounds. Sam Merrill's like number 2 or number 3 in points. And Mason Faltz, I think he's going to be, like, if you add everything up in the end, I ended up adding the numbers up, though somebody added up the numbers before me, and I kind of ended up stealing their thunder. But he'll be like top 5 or top 10, I think.
Oh, Jaden Johnson did this.
Yeah, he added up
Sports
those numbers.
He's incredible.
Yeah, he's the one that added up. I didn't notice his tweet, or I would have just retweeted his, because he added the numbers up better than I did. But he'd be like top 10 in like a bunch of like.
Oh, God, top 5 in a couple categories too.
Yeah, like top 5 in scoring. And I forget exactly where he'd be, but like I think he'd have the most games played, most games started, top 5 in scoring. He'd be top 10 or 15 in rebounds. I think he'd be first in steals. So like,
it's incredible, man.
That's where Mason makes his case. Though, in addition to all that stuff, where Tony Brown doesn't necessarily have that, and like I don't think points per game should be the reason you get your number. Your jersey hung from the rafters, but it kind of ends up being one of the things that sells you on it to a degree. The discussion should be more nuanced than that, but I don't know. It's a tricky discussion to have.
Hey, Bobby Wagner's only the 3rd football player. Did I read this right?
Yeah.
Who's the other 2? Merlin Olsen.
It's Elmer Ward and Merlin Olsen. So Elmer Ward's your first ever All-American. Merlin Olsen is your best player ever, and then.
Let's play this game. I got to do this with you. I'm going to put you right on the spot. And Aggie Nation, you listeners, I want you to join in. I want to hear your guys' opinions on this, because I really am genuinely asking. Who would be the next 2 football guys you put on there? I think, so if I may, Jordan Love, obviously. That's a no-brainer. Wow, you're actually giving me that look. What?
I don't think there's a single...
What?
I don't think there's a single Utah State football player. Like if we're
oh my gosh, I'm gonna go Stephen A. Smith on you.
If we're going by the criteria that we have right now, like basketball, maybe the bar is a little bit lower. Though we did have this conversation the other day. Part of the reason there are so few players, whose numbers have been retired with football, is because
they suck.
Yeah, they sucked for 50 years. But like
Jordan Love deserves to be on that. Oh, that is bonkers, dude. You talk about records. You talk about legacy. You talk about numbers.
His
check.
Okay, okay, let's walk through this. Okay, records.
Okay.
Logan Bonner broke all of his records. Are we hanging his jersey from the rafters?
No, nor should we. He wasn't a 4-year guy.
Jordan Love wasn't.
Jordan Love.
He was essentially a 2-year guy, 2.5, if we're being generous.
Okay, 2.5. Logan Bonner transferred here and then played.
And fair, but like also, what's Jordan Love's legacy? What like he rewrote the record books. That is fair to say, best quarterback in Utah State history, in my opinion. But
you just answered your own question.
Okay, but why isn't the best wide receiver? Why isn't the best running back? Why is
wait?
Or are we saying we should just because he's the best player at that position? Does that mean he should have his name hung in the rafters? Because otherwise, we better have 22 guys up there.
Why is Bobby Wagner going to the? Why is Bobby Wagner's jersey going into the Hall?
I think it's to be blunt, his NFL career, it plays a really big role. To be perfectly honest.
So his jersey's being hung in the rafters because of his NFL career?
In part. I think the fact he was like, 3-time first team All-WAC, bunch of other stuff was part of the reason that the program was revived. So,
wow.
And I know,
wow.
Whether it's fair or not, you can argue whether or not it's fair. But because you could probably list guys who were better as Aggies than Bobby Wagner. Like if you're just talking strictly Aggie uniform,
dude, I don't know.
But his there's a conversation that could be had.
Yeah,
or at least at their peak, maybe.
Okay.
For longevity in their entire career,
sure,
you would be really hard pressed to find somebody better than Bobby. But to be blunt, the fact that Bobby is an NFL Hall of Famer is playing a role as to why he's getting his jersey retired.
Interesting.
Merlin maybe anyway because he was so amazing.
Merlin was one of a kind.
He's the only one to ever win a national player.
Wayne Estes is to men's basketball.
Yeah, that's
Merlin Olsen is to football, and both those two hold the highest notch.
Why isn't there a Wayne Estes statue? I mean, they named a building after him, so maybe that counts.
They have the bust inside the Wayne Estes thing, don't they?
Yeah, well, that's a bust.
Yeah, but they don't have a statue for every Hall of Famer. They have a bust.
Yeah, but they have one for Merlin Olsen. Get one of Wayne out in front of the student entrance or whatever. They should probably have. I know. Again, they named a dang building after him, so maybe that counts. But ought they not have a statue of Wayne Estes?
Hey, Emmett White, would you put him in?
It's we're talking about a guy who literally holds an NCAA record, so that's something.
It's for a single game.
True, but it's a record that still hasn't been broken. I'm surprised it hasn't been broken. To be honest,
me too, actually.
By somebody in the MAC or something.
I know.
That's just how's somebody not broken that? But it's also hard to get 580 yards or whatever it was. So yeah, if we're going by the standard that's been set, and maybe it's not the standard, maybe that just kind of happens to be it. I don't think there's anyone that should have their number retired for Utah State. Could Jordan Love achieve that? Maybe. But again, his legacy at Utah State was that 2018 season. He didn't even win a conference championship.
Yeah, I'd blame the coach on that one. I know. That's unfair to say. I know, for Jordan, yes. But his 2019 year was really good. I just feel like the defense absolutely failed him.
The defense wasn't good. He had a slight letdown, but as we mentioned yesterday, it was mostly only a letdown in the context of his 2018 season.
Exactly. Yeah,
because his 2019 was actually still pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Compared to pretty much anyone else around.
Gotcha.
We got to get to the Young Power Sports text line. Actually, we're going to take a break because these are all kind of starting to stack up.
Oh, sweet.
But let's get to these texts coming up next here on the Full Court Press. Welcome back to the Full Court Press. And just a reminder, make sure to feel the love with Mountain Valley Heating and Air. Last year, they gave away 5 complete heating and air systems to deserving families. And in 2026, they're trying to double that, give away 10 of them. So nominate someone today. Their nominations are open now. Go to mtnvalleyhvac.com. That's mtnvalleyhvac.com to nominate somebody for a free complete heating and air system. While you're there, make sure to schedule your carbon monoxide safety home inspection. So, Ajay, we went into the break. We're talking about whose number or jersey would you retire, or jersey hanging in the rafters. They do the weird thing in basketball where they don't actually retire numbers.
Yeah.
Except for Wayne and Bert's numbers. Because, half the team is wearing the rosters that are hung from the rafters. But we had a lot of texts, a lot of engagement on the text line. If you want to join the conversation, text 435-339-0321, 8968 with a couple of texts here. One noting, we're talking about Cornell Green.
Yep.
Noting that Cornell Green went on and played in the NFL. That's kind of the weirdest thing is he's one of the all-time basketball players at Utah State, but he played in the NFL. Like, he didn't play pro basketball. He went and played in the NFL. He didn't even play football at Utah State, to my knowledge. And I forget the reason why. I asked Al Lewis about that, and he told me. And there was some. But 8968 also saying Louis Giamono was one of the best running backs in Aggie history. And that's a callback, because that's going back to I don't think he was contemporary with Merlin, but I think it was like 60s, 70s.
Okay.
Like, you go back to like all the 100-yard rushing games, and you go through the last couple of decades, and then you go back far enough, and it's just like Louis, and it's just like his name like 20 times.
Fair enough.
Because he ran the ball so much. 7994 saying, talking about basketball jersey retirement, saying, I would take Nate Harris before Tony Brown.
Whew. Wow. And look, I get Nate Harris too.
Yeah.
I do. I understand. He was probably the best high school basketball player I ever saw in person. I still remember when he played Mountain Crest at Mountain Crest, and I think it was like Jake Crest versus Nate Harris, like this big matchup. I think Nate had like 38 in that game. I mean, just torched that whole entire team. One of the best basketball player I ever saw play in high school in this valley.
8632. We're talking about jerseys that the Jazz should have hung in. 8632 saying, Ajay Pistol Pete?
No.
Oh, no, I disagree there. Pistol Pete should be up there.
Why?
He's a Hall of Famer. Played for your franchise. He's a Hall of Famer.
We got to
and I know
we got to cool it with his Hall of Fame. Like, Yao Ming's in the flipping Hall of Fame. What did he do?
Well, there are other reasons he's in the Hall of Fame. Part of that is his international impact.
Oh my gosh! Really? That's what we're doing?
And to be honest, part of, like, of course, Pistol Pete may or may not have gotten to the Hall of Fame based off of his NBA career, but a big part, because remember, it's not the NBA Hall of Fame, it's the Basketball Hall of Fame, so it's everything.
Yeah. Okay.
And
good
Pistol
point.
Pete, like, his college career.
It's a great point.
But like, he was
but
Pistol Pete was like one of the first, like probably the first star of the Jazz franchise, like literally your first star player. And he's a Hall of Famer. Like, he was a star player for your franchise. You hang his name up there.
Okay.
And then Adrian Dantley. Adrian Dantley.
No. What did Adrian Dantley do?
And that's a fair point.
Like, really,
I'm not going to defend Dantley as hard as I will Pistol Pete,
no.
but Pistol Pete should be up there.
Okay.
9310 saying, I agree, no further football players.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think just
wow.
I mean, Jordan Love could maybe earn his way there, depending on. Again, part of the reason Bobby got in is because of his NFL career. If Jordan has a Hall of Fame NFL career,
so he needs to have a Hall of Fame NFL career to have his jersey hung at Utah State.
I'm not saying it makes sense. I am not saying it makes sense or that it's right. I'm just saying that's part of the reason why. Like, I get it. If you're saying it doesn't make sense, I don't necessarily disagree. I'm just saying, like, this is how the fish is getting cooked. Like, that's just that's the way the process is happening.
Sucks at cooking fish then.
That would be me. 4991 saying, when is Ajay's jersey getting retired?
Yeah, when is my jersey getting retired? Mountain Crest?
Yeah.
I might get my water bottle hung up in the rafters.
8632. I know I skipped one of his texts. Let me get to that one.
Okay.
Thanks for letting me know 863, because I did just completely miss it. Saying the guy who owns the block record, who didn't even play full 4 seasons because of injury, definitely getting his jersey retired. Also have to keep in mind, Nimi will probably have the best pro career of an Aggie ever. That counts for something. I think it does. Like, because if we're talking about guys, and I'll be honest, that text has convinced me at least a little bit, because we're talking about guys who are among the best in certain categories. Neemy's up there. Will he have the best pro career? I think him and Sam are going to be competing for that. But you make a good point, like of putting his jersey up there, and he was right along there with Sam. I'd probably still lean away from it, partly on the fact that, like, look, great players who have great cases can end up not having their number, retired or jersey hung in the rafters, because the standard just needs to be that tight, in my opinion. Now, I could be wrong. If Miyashiketa has his jersey hung in the rafters, I will not argue against it, and I'll say well-deserved. But if you're asking me to make the decision, then I would lean against it.
Because if he's getting in, Justin Bean's getting in.
Probably.
Yeah, if Nemish gets his jersey in the rafters,
you're opening the door for
Justin
a lot
Bean
of
better
players.
get in.
And that's why, like, the standard just needs to be almost unattainably high.
Like, here's the thing, though. Justin Bean and Miyashiketa both had a massive impact on the basketball program.
Yep.
Mason Faltsev, Sam Merrill had a massive impact. J.C. Carroll. Honestly, those guys have had massive. Justin Bean stuck around for 4 years when he easily could have left. And then I think he was in top 3 in rebounds. Like he's
somewhere in the top 5 or so.
And that guy isn't the biggest dude. I don't know. If you put Miyashiketa in, Justin Bean's got to go in.
Well, yeah, Justin Bean. I think Tony. Like if you're putting Miyashiketa, like Tony Brown definitely needs to get in. Ty Wesley. Like you're like, again, the standard needs to be like almost as high as possible, to the point where Mason Falslev is like barely cresting that line. Like that's how high, like to the point where I would say, like, if Mason Falslev, heaven forbid, didn't play another moment of basketball, I wouldn't put his jersey in the rafters. Like that's how high the standard needs to be. It needs to be the point where Mason has not even attained that yet, though we assume that he will.
I like that. That's
based
great.
On his
I
next
like
season.
that. Hey, 9696, I texted earlier. I want to read this one for you. How much should a former USU player's performance in the NBA play into their jersey retirement, if at all?
I mean, with Bobby, and to some degree with Merlin Olsen, though, again, I think Merlin probably would have done that based off his Aggie career anyway.
Sure.
But, like, again, whether or not you think it is the correct way to go, it does have an impact on it. Like, being an amazing pro player does have an impact on the way we ultimately end up viewing maybe their college career. So I think that's something that will play a factor, and could raise somebody's stock. Like that's something, like if Miyashiketa ends up having one of the best if he ends up having the best NBA career, that's something that could actually end up helping him in the end. Where, so, combined with the fact, obviously, where he's your best shot blocker.
I think his college career
history
alone should be, and I think you're saying this too, his college career alone should be a consideration.
Yeah, and it's certainly, you can build a pretty good case. 8632 did a pretty good job of building a case.
I would agree. Yep.
So, yeah, I think I said something. The text you read, did that come in earlier and I maybe just missed it?
No, you're correct.
But we have a few more texts to get to. I want to get through a few of these. Saying Al Smith would be my next, along with strong consideration for Eric Hipple. Al Smith would be very comparable to Bobby Wagner.
That's fair.
People bring up Eric Hipple, where I know I've looked into him a little bit. I know he went to the NFL and had a decent-ish career.
Mm-hmm.
I had also had somebody like on Twitter, like I said, like Bobby Wagner's the third player to ever has Aggie retire. He listed off a bunch of players, like they don't have their numbers.
Numbers retired. Yeah,
but like he was saying that.
Hey, is it number retired or jersey retired in football?
I think it's number.
So number 9 will not be worn again.
Yeah, and I don't know for sure. I casually checked last year's roster to see if 71 or 35 were taken. Neither were.
Okay.
I only checked 1 year.
See, that would be kind of,
And some
really
71
cool.
and 35 aren't the most popular numbers, so it could just be a coincidence nobody took them. But number 9, like, that's probably your third or fourth most popular number on the roster.
And then what numbers are retired? Are there numbers retired in men's basketball?
There are only 2 numbers that are retired
and it's
in
Wayne
basketball.
Estes, obviously.
Wayne Estes is 33 and Burt Cook's number 6.
Who is... I'm going to get yelled at.
He's one of those where it's like he's your first ever star player. Like they retired at like we're talking the 1950s.
Yeah, dude, I have no clue who this guy is.
So this is, and yeah, I don't have
so
much
much
recollection
trouble.
either, but he's in that category of like he's your first ever star player. I can't remember if he was like All-American. I think he led the conference in scoring when he was playing back when the conference was like 5 teams, but I think they retired his number while he was still playing. So, I mean, if you compare Burt Cook's legacy to the rest of the players, it doesn't really stack up. But, like, you know, your first ever star kind of holds a special place in program history, even when it goes that far back. 2603 saying, perhaps I am biased as a former teammate to Bobby Wagner, but Bobby was a different type of player from day one. He was special day one. As a true freshman, I felt the same way about Jordan Love when I saw him at spring ball his freshman year, but I would put Love in the same category as Keta. He had one more year of greatness, then yes. Or had he one more year of greatness, then yes.
2603 spot on. By the way, I agree with him about Bobby Wagner. That dude was off the charts. Like, you knew on that field, Bobby Wagner was better than any other player on any other team on the field. Didn't matter who it was. Bobby Wagner was one of the top 2 players on that field in every given game. Amazing. That guy was incredible.
6391 saying, it just feels wrong not to have that trio, Chucky, Turbo, Bobby, together. I may be biased as that season was my freshman year and it was so fun.
Oh, man, was that a great season or what? And look, I mean, Robert Turbin had an incredible career Aggie as a running back for the Aggies. And he's turned into an incredible broadcasting career now. He's doing a great job as a broadcaster. Love listening to him. Chucky's an interesting one.
Yeah, he's another one where we have a lot of these players who felt like they were one more year away from being...
The problem was his injuries derailed his career, and I can't put him in there.
Yeah, and that just feels so dirty
I
to do.
know,
It's like,
does. It does.
Like, you don't want to knock a guy because of injuries, but
I
like...
agree.
I don't know. You got to have done it on the field. Because, like, Chucky's in a similar boat to Jordan Love where it's like that one year was just special.
Yeah.
Like, it's Jordan Love is your best quarterback year ever. Debate between Chucky Keaton's 2012 and Logan Bonner's 2021. I'm a little bit more partial to Chucky Keaton.
I am too.
But like, I'd understand if you'd argue that 2021 season. But like, for all 3 of those quarterbacks, weirdly enough, all 3 of those quarterbacks returned and had a relative letdown for various reasons.
But here's the other problem to this too. Logan Bonner was good. Don't get me wrong. He owned some records. They were chucking the ball a ton. During his time. And
they also had probably the best wide receivers.
Oh, yeah, Logan but then guess what? Logan Bonner also had to sit out some plays and some games, and Cooper Legault came and had himself a game in the bowl game against Oregon State. Yeah. So really, we're giving Logan Bonner way too much credit. I don't think Logan Bonner is as good as Chucky or Jordan.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
In any way.
I don't know if you're giving him enough credit because like Cooper Legault came in and threw for like 130 yards. So
he won them the game.
I don't know if he won them the game. He was playing quarterback in a game that they won.
That offense had to score some points.
And it barely scored points. It scored like 20 points the entire game. The defense won the Aggies that game.
Okay, Nick Henry, Justin Rice, is that right?
I think so, yeah.
Those 2 were mean.
Yeah, that was
unfair. That was unfair football.
Let's see. I got to 8-6. I finally got to I didn't skip any of 8632's text. Also, 4989 saying, what sport did Ajay play at Mountain Crest?
Crap. Okay, so I played 1 game. Actually, I played 2 games in high school for football. I got a concussion in the second one.
I think that's more than me. Like, I played football in high school, and I was one of those who rode the bench the entire time.
Yeah, I probably should have rode the bench.
I should have played.
I was the water boy.
I should have played soccer.
I was an all-state water boy, though.
Yeah, I should have played a different sport, to be perfectly honest. I was not. The one sport I played in high school was my worst sport. So
really?
It was a dumb idea. Of course, I played at a 6A school, and I'm not nearly athletic enough to participate in most sports at a 6A school, or well, it was 5A at the time, but essentially the same. So I probably would have rode the bench in any sport that I played.
Me too.
8968 saying the coach of the Dallas Cowboys saw the athletic potential in Cornell Green and took a chance on him. Marv Robert and Nate Williams both played in the NBA and ABA. They both had decent careers.
Thank you, 89. I really didn't know that 8968. So I didn't. That's cool about.
Yeah, like if you're talking
Cornell
about
Green.
if you're talking about for Cornell Green, But yeah, for Nate and Marvin Williams, like they probably both of them are 1 and 2 as far as best NBA careers, though Sam and Nimi are closing fast.
Do you think so?
I mean, I'd have to go look at the numbers, but I mean, Sam and Nimi are both champions. Of course, granted, both were bench warmers for the champions.
Sam won a championship right in the pine.
And so did Nimi.
Yeah.
Nimi technically appeared in the NBA Finals for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
In 2 different
now,
finals games, I
Nimi's
think.
getting significant minutes as is Sam, and so now you're kind of getting a better taste of like what they actually could provide.
Yeah, and I think they're either catching them. I haven't looked at the numbers. Maybe you could argue they've caught them. I haven't looked at the numbers recently, so I'm not going to really make a definitive thought on that, but they'll probably catch them. But I think right now Marv and Nate are 1 and 2. 8003 saying Tony Brown should have his jersey in the rafters. I would petition for Wild Bill to have his jersey retired. Oh yeah, I forgot that from earlier.
So Wild Bill, yes. Wild Bill. I love the guy. I think the Herd has a Hall of Fame now, right? I think Derek got put in. Mr. Churro Derek got put in.
Yeah, Wild Bill was the first person in the Herd Hall of Fame.
Thank you. And I think that's good enough for Wild Bill.
And I think they've added 2 or 3 others. I forget how many are in now, but they're slowly adding in people who are.
I love that.
Who are deserving there.
That's awesome.
So thanks for everyone your patience with the text. I know we had a few of these stack up, and we had to get some reminders on these texts. We're trying to get to all these here. 8739. I think last text as we clear the deck here, saying Anthony Calvillo dominated in the CFL, didn't he?
Yeah. Okay. So that's
an interesting conversation.
Anthony Calvillo is a good one. That's a great text. 8739.
Because he's basically,
and he won him a bowl game too, didn't they?
He did.
They won the Las Vegas Bowl.
I believe that was him.
Yeah, that was him.
I'm pretty sure.
In 1993.
Anthony Calvillo's career is kind of like this island in that sea of 50 years of not great, but like where he also, I think, still holds the single game passing yards record. In that,
is it him or Tony Adams?
I think it's Calvillo. I think it was that game where they beat BYU like 55, 54 or something.
Yeah, it was like 58, 56.
Yeah, something in the 50s. And then, and he's also in, as far as I am aware, I would need to double check this. I looked it up a few years ago and it was true. I don't know if it's changed. To my knowledge, he is the only professional American football player to ever throw for 6,000 yards in a season.
I believe that's correct.
I don't know. Again, I checked.
Now, granted, it's the Canadian Football League.
Yeah, it's a Canadian Football League. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, an asterisk next to it.
But I believe in professional football, he holds the single season passing yards record.
Which is amazing.
It's pretty crazy.
Anthony's a tough man. Great text. Oh,
I try to figure out where he is these days. I think he's like coaching for some team in Canada or something. Last I checked, I was trying to figure out where he was. And then 9-0-5 actually missed this text. If Robert Turbin has an amazing career as an analyst for sports with CBS, does that raise his stock to make it so he could be in the rafters?
No.
Yeah, being an analyst, that doesn't.
Yeah. Now, okay, so I will say this, and I'm trying to be respectful to the Hall of Fame, right? Al freaking Lewis. Like, when in the world are we going to put his name
I think
in the Athletics Hall of Fame?
I think he needs to be in there.
Stop. Al Lewis is the Mr. Original 100. And if you put Al Lewis in there, which you damn well should, Craig Hislop also deserves to be in there too.
He's on the committee though, so.
Yeah, great. Honor him already then. I don't care if he's on the committee. I don't care if he's the president. Stephanie McMahon's in the WWE Hall of Fame. Now she's the doggone CEO.
I mean, they put the Cowboys owner in the NFL Hall of Fame, which
Jerry.
This is the dumbest thing ever.
I know.
There isn't a single owner in NFL history that deserved to be in the Hall of Fame except for maybe Paul Brown.
The two media guys that I would say need to go in immediately, honestly, and there should be a first ballot, no question, no thought, hands down. Al Lewis, for obvious reasons. Sean Harrison.
Yeah,
Sean is one of the greatest to ever do it in the media business.
Yeah, he's got a long career covering the Aggies,
and he was incredibly good. And I hope to heaven that when the committee meets next time, that they'll at least at some point start putting some media people in, because Al and Sean are your first ballot, first two that should go in before anybody else.
Yeah. We'll make sure to hang Ajay's. When you're done 50 years of Utah State women's basketball after they've won 2 national championships.
Oh, dude, yeah.
And they're
gonna build a statue of Wes Brooks or whoever the heck won that national championship.
You're gonna be the Al Lewis of Utah State women's basketball.
Is that a good thing?
Probably. I mean, being the Al Lewis of anything is a compliment. to some
Actually,
degree.
you know what? That is a good. Okay, now you make me feel bad for even questioning it. Al Lewis, honestly, and Sean Harrison, my first two guys I'm putting in the media side of it. They need to be in, and we need to quit. We need to quit playing around with it.
Yeah, I think deserved there. We do need to take a break. We're a bit overdue, so we'll hit a break. Come back. Maybe talk about the Mammoth. They got a game tonight.
Dude, gosh, dang it! Come on.
Yeah, we'll talk about that next here on the Full Court Press. Ajay, are you like me and suck at golf?
Yes.
Then you need to check out Birdie's Golf Lounge. They got a swing AI coach system. They got these Unicore iXO2 launch monitors. They got more cameras for superior analysis. So I guess
Could help my swing.
Yeah, two peas in a pod here. We both got swings that suck, so we need to head over to Birdie's Golf Lounge, 650 North, 870 West. If you're like me and Ajay and need your swing fixed, they can help you. If you are just better than me and Ajay, well, they got 2,000 courses available. They've got all this fancy stuff that'll track your superior golf game better for when you play these courses. And they got, memberships, they got leagues and competitions, national, local prizes. So whether you're not good at golf like me, where I shot a 49 the other day on 9 holes, specify 9 holes at Logan River, or if you're someone who can shoot like a 29 at Logan River, Birdie's Golf Lounge is for you.
Isn't 49 really good?
It's 13 over par, I think.
What?
For 9 holes. Because it was a front 9, I think. Actually, front 9 might be 35, par 35. But yeah, I was like,
okay.
I had like 3 pars, but then I had like double or triple bogey on every other hole. So it was an up and down round. We'll say that. A few more texts on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line. 435-339-0321 is the number you can text. 8632 saying Rob Flager Flager. I was butchering his last name, but for USU Media Hall of Fame.
Yeah, longtime PA announcer for Utah State Athletics for football and men's basketball.
Yeah. Obviously, very recognizable. Whenever you're the voice of something, people recognize his voice.
Yep.
And that's
100%.
That's something that certainly you have a case there when you're a part of Utah State Athletics. And again, the voice of some that's always something there. 8968 saying amen on both Al Lewis and Craig Hislop. I had some college classes with Craig.
Oh man, Al and Craig, I remember the first time I met Al, I was absolutely terrified, and he was so nice.
Same here. Like,
so
I was
kind. But you hear his voice all the time. In the morning, you'd wake up, you listen to KB and you hear Al's voice. You listen to a football game, men's basketball game, you hear Al Lewis. And Craig Hislop, you hear him right next. You can't think Al without thinking Craig, and you can't think Craig without thinking Al. It's just it's Ron Boone and it's Hot Rod Hundley together, and those two did it so well and so incredibly knowledgeable and well prepared, and they brought such a great, such a great, I don't know how to say it, relationship even with the listeners. The way they were able to call games and work together. It's two of my favorite people in the world too. I love Al and I love Craig, and I'm so angry I had to miss Al Lewis's game last year when they went to Fresno State. I was so livid.
Yeah. 931-5 saying, how much money would you both donate to? I think he means Birdie's Golf Lounge or Bernie's Golf Lounge. Do you two make that much in a year? Do you two make that much in a year? I'm
sorry, what?
I wasn't sure what 905 is getting at there. We do have about a minute or so. We've got to take another break in a second here. But Utah Mammoth, I'm still recovering from Game 4.
Close, man.
Yeah, I was not happy with Game 4. Game 5 is tonight, 8 p.m. They're back in Vegas. Crucial Game 5. You hear all the numbers about how important it is. At least they would go on about in the NBA. I'm sure they do in the NHL. Like how many times a 2-2 series, the winner of Game 5, yada yada. This is a big one, and this has been a very back and forth, even series where I know Vegas has a lot of times felt like they kind of have the upper hand, but the Mammoths have taken it to them. And obviously, they've won multiple games, including they're the only one who had a runaway game with that 4-2 win.
You talked about after Game 1 just how that for most of that game, the Mammoth were outskated. And it feels like Utah Mammoth made some great adjustments for games 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
They really did. Now, the question is can you bounce back from a heartbreaking, just gut-wrenching loss in overtime where you had multiple chances in overtime to win that?
Yep.
And you had to come back all the way just from a 3-0 deficit just to, get back into that thing. And then turn around and play Game 5 on the road in Vegas. You got to somehow reset yourself mentally. This is, I think, I agree with you. It's a massive Game 5. You lose this game, I think the series is over. You win this game, you at least got a chance at a Game 7 if needed.
Yeah, you got a really good chance. And if you win Game 5, you come back to home for a chance to close out the series.
If you're Vegas, you want to avoid it.
Yeah, and I think Utah has done, and I've talked earlier about like how does Utah as a young team, inexperienced in the playoffs, how do they handle the pressure? Like you go down 1-0, you can't lose Game 2. They didn't lose Game 2. Then, then in a crucial first home game, winning that game, and then, and in Game 4, you're down, what was it, 3-0?
Yeah, it was 3-0.
Something like that. Yeah, you're down 3-0. You could have said, look, series going to be tied. We'll go back to Vegas. You could have hung up the skates and just said, we're done.
I like this.
No, they fought back.
I like that.
So they have shown mental maturity beyond what you would think for a young team. Hasn't been perfect. The series tied 2-2, and to be honest, they should be up 3-1. But you know what?
Don't do
that's just not how it is. But they have shown, I think, the mental maturity. So you talk about how crucial it is and the mental toughness you need to have.
Yeah.
You're spot on. And I think Utah has shown they can be up to the task. Not to say they'll definitely win the game, because you can be up to the task and still lose. But I think Utah is mentally up to the task. It's just now down to you got to go out there and put the puck in the back of the net.
Do they win tonight?
I'm just going to say yes.
I'm going to say no.
I'm not going to lack faith.
I love it. I love it, Jason. Yes.
So, I'm gonna be optimistic.
I'm gonna jinx it.
On the other side of this timeout, we'll be pessimistic. We'll talk about the NBA because the NBA's done something stupid again. We'll talk about that next year on the Full Court Press. Final segment here on the Full Court Press as we look to wrap things up on another edition of today's show. Having Ajay on filling in for Eric. Probably need to have you on sometime next week because Eric's going to be gone, though it's only 1 hour next week. When we were talking about the Mammoth just now, ABC 123, ABC 99 on the YouTube chat saying, as an Aggies fan, go Knights go.
What am I missing? Aggies and Knights.
Well, he's an Aggies fan, but he cheers for the Golden Knights.
Oh, okay.
That's what he's saying. Because we were just talking about hockey.
Oh, I know. I mean, I get it. Okay.
Which there's a lot of overlap.
I think why he's voting for the Knights, though. If there's like a comparison, if we had a Utah kid on the team.
Oh, he's just saying like I don't know.
He's a Vegas Knights fan. That's great. Awesome.
Yeah, which there's a lot of Vegas Golden Knights fans in Utah.
There is.
A lot of them were turncoat the other day. They turned in their Vegas jerseys for a Utah jersey.
I saw that. Holy smokes.
So a lot of people were also got the entrepreneurial spirit where they went and bought Vegas jerseys on Facebook. One of our texters mentioned they knew somebody who did that, where it's like they're not even a Vegas fan. They go buy a cheap Vegas jersey.
They go turn it in.
Get someone like me carrying like this extra small jersey. Like, here, this is my jersey. Can I trade it in?
It's shrunk in the dryer. Sorry. Hey, Adam Silver is smoking crushed up Smarties again, and we told him not to. But then
something stronger than that.
Bad decisions when he does this.
I'll say this. If you don't have somebody special in your life, then your goal should be to find someone who loves you as much as Adam Silver loves a draft lottery. That's what I'm looking for in life.
That's so good. I'm stealing that. I'm so stealing that.
So, like,
explain to me.
Adam Silver just believes that a lottery will solve all of his problems, and he refused. Like, people have come up with all kinds of fantastic ideas.
Yes.
Some of which I love, some of which I think are stupid. But you know what? We're at least trying. We're coming up with ideas. I appreciate the effort. NBA fans have come up with way more interesting ideas to help solve, the issue of tanking, which this is pretty much the only year where I'd say there's been a true tanking problem, because every other year, 1 or 2 teams tank. This year, there was the one point where like the bottom 10 teams were on like a collective 80-game losing streak or something. Yeah. Maybe it was only 40. I can't remember where it was, but it was stupid. So many teams have been purposefully losing, teams willing to fall out of the playoffs. Like, this has been a year, but part of it is because of how amazing the draft is. You're looking at 5 or 6 potential superstars, at least 2 or 3, which just the depth, maybe not like the high-end talent, like you don't have a Wemby, you don't have a LeBron or whatnot, but you got some pretty dang good players at the top and then like some pretty dang good players behind them. So that's why a lot of teams are tanking. But like, it's not nearly as much of a problem as Adam Silver is pretending it is, or really he's just at the beck and call of all the gambling companies. That's kind of where he feels like he has to solve this. But there are so many other ways, but he's just like, no, we're going to do the draft lottery. The draft lottery is the only way we can fix this. And it's just like, have some creativity. Like when they're trying to fix the All-Star game, be innovative. No, we're going to go back to East versus West, or world, USA versus the world. Like, Adam Silver could not come up with an original idea if you smacked him in the face with it. Like, he just doesn't know how to be original. He doesn't know how to be creative. He's just not willing to do anything innovative. And I think that's the thing that's going to really hurt the NBA in the long run, is that Adam Silver, while people are calling for his head, and it's like, I don't know, maybe that's a bit too harsh, but like, I don't think he's helping the NBA. I don't know if he's really hurting it, but he certainly ain't helping it. And he's not being innovative. And he can only double down on old ideas. He can't innovate. He's too scared to innovate. Oh, fix tanking? Just flatten the lottery odds. Oh, flattening the lottery odds made it worse? Flatten them even more. Oh, that made it worse? Flatten them again. My dude.
Yeah.
Come up with a new idea.
Yeah.
So definition of insanity and all that.
He's doing it over again. Yeah. So, and the other problem I don't like is like all these services, they're like, hey, if you want to watch this playoff game, got to have Prime Video. If you want to watch this, I'm like, dude.
Yeah, there have been multiple.
Just freaking play it on the TV.
There have been multiple NBA playoff games. I'm like, hey, I want to tune in on this, and it's on Prime Video. So I didn't watch it.
Magic and Pistons tonight. It's on Prime Video. You can't watch it.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch. I've watched more NHL. Like I used to watch. Like one night I watched the NBA, and then I watched the NHL the other night, or maybe I'd watch one NBA or one NHL game in the same night. I've watched like 3 NBA playoff games and like 8 NHL games, and it's that gap is gonna get wider. It's just I'm willing to watch the NHL more now than the NBA because I'm kind of sick of it. So. Anyway, on that positive note, we're going to go ahead and sign off for the day. Thank you so much.
Go Mammoth!
Thank you so much for joining us here on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan, and streaming live on YouTube. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.